So good morning, everyone. This is Tidestone Solutions, and our presentation today is on the Dynamics GP Professional Services Tools Library. We'll be going through all of that. And to start us off, I have Kelly Sintz here with us, and she is going to tell you a little bit about Tidestone.
Good morning, everyone. So again, my name is Kelly Sintz. I'm the Business Development Director here at Tidestone Solutions. So we've been in business for over 20 years and continue to deliver wonderful tools and business solutions to all of our customers. We pride ourselves on keeping long-term customer-focused relationships with all of you and hope that these webinars and the user group meetings are helpful for all of you. Sorry, hold on one second. We have a team of business process experts that work here in our office in Portland. So we will help you with software selection, data conversion, training and support, as well as integrating applications, current or new. Custom reporting is something that we specialize in right now, especially. Software implementation, of course, and automating your tasks, trying to get all of you off of Excel as much as possible, and automating and streamlining your business processes.
Okay, great. Great. Well, thank you, Kelly. I think most of you have known Tidestone for a while, and we'll move on. And so welcome again. And we'll get started with the webinar. So my name's Alicia Berglund. Kelly is our business development person that just introduced you a little bit to our solutions. I am a consultant here, or solution specialist, whatever title you want to choose. I've been with Tidestone for, it'll be 15 years this July, and so I'll be walking you through the Professional Services Tool Library demo. You'll see now that I have an agenda of what we'll cover today. I'm going to try to show you as many tools as possible, but with an hour we won't be able to go through every tool, and some I will just touch on and let you know that they're available. Anything that you may have questions on, feel free to send a chat message, and excuse me, and then if after the webinar you have additional questions, you can watch the webinar because we are recording today and we post it on our website, or you can give us a call or email our tech support team at support@tidestonesolutions.com. So for today, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what is the Professional Services Tools Library. What it is, it's a group of tools that in the past Microsoft has charged customers $5,000 for the bundle. And what they found is that they realized these are tools that really should just be available to customers in the bundle pricing that they're now embracing. So the Tools Library allows you to change things in GP that you typically can't change. For example, a vendor ID. If you have a vendor that, excuse me, is their name has changed, and so if you have their vendor ID, alpha and numeric, you can go in and change that vendor ID. Or perhaps you have duplicate vendors or duplicate employees. You can combine those so that all of the records are under one customer ID. And we'll look at that a little further, but it's those kind of tools that will help you to manage change in your data throughout the different modules. So again, as I said, it's free to all GP customers. If you have an existing installation prior to GP 2013, you would need to have that installed. If you have GP 2013, it's typically installed at the time of the implementation or during your upgrade, and it's part of the features. So if you're familiar with installing products on your workstation, if you'd go to your control panel and add remove programs and go to GP and add a feature to your GP install, which would be the Professional Services Tools Library. And as I said, if it's anything prior to GP 2013, it's a download from customer source, and we can help get that to you. In the past, it was not available to customers except through your partner. I believe you as a customer can get onto Customer Source now and download that product and install it. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us and we're happy to help you. So one important thing to note is that when you're using these tools, it's always important to make a backup prior to using the tool. Sometimes if you make a change, you may anticipate a different change than what the tool is actually going to do for you. So until you fully understand these tools, it's good to make a backup. And even when you do, I make it a practice to always make a backup before making changes, because sometimes you just don't get it right the first time. And so making a backup can help you to restore if a change is made that you want to undo. There is no undo with the tools, so it would be a restore. Excuse me. The other recommendation would be to run it in your test company to confirm that it's going to make the change the way that you anticipate. As with any type of change in your business process or testing a transaction, it's always a good idea to have a test company so that you can kind of play around in there and get familiar with the process, get familiar with the tool, and ensure that the change that you want to make is going to be what actually happens when you use the tool. Next, when using the tools, some of the tools require that you have all of the users out of GP. And the reason for that is it's going back and changing tables. And so if users are updating those tables at the same time that you're changing them, it can cause a problem. And so when you use the tool, it will flag you and let you know that you can't proceed any further until all users are out of the system. Now with the tool, you can also download the documentation, and that will walk you through step by step of, oh, I'm so sorry, you're not seeing my screen. I just noticed that from someone. There you go. So here we are. I apologize. The show my screen didn't enable the first time that we did that. Can you all, I hope you all can see now. I just got a note. So again, we'll go back to the agenda here. And where I'm at is in the using tools area. And we had just talked about requiring all users to be out of GP. The next item is that it may require you to be logged in as the system administrator. And my experience has been companies typically don't share that with your end users. So you may need to have your IT department involved when you want to make a change. And lastly, if you want access to using the tools, you will need to have security to that tool. And so typically what happens is we set up a task in GP to allow you to access those tools. Some of the components that are available to you through the tools are at the system level, financial level, purchasing module, sales module, payroll, inventory, and then there's just some miscellaneous tools that we'll take a look at. So now that you can see my presentation, we'll go on to the next slide. So the first thing you'll want to do is ensure that your users that you want to be able to use this tool have access to security. And so the person responsible for setting up security can do this, or we can help you do this. It's in the security setup for GP, and you create a task. For those of you who aren't familiar with how GP security works, GP security is set up by roles, and within those roles are tasks. And so let's just take a look at that security task in my demo environment. So I'm just going to go here to my security tasks. And I'm going to pull up my task that I created. And so for the professional services tools, I'm going to name that ID as PSTL. It's just an acronym for the Professional Services Tools Library. The product that you're going to select is the Technical Services Tool. So let's just scroll down and find that. Well, I must have gone by it. There it is. And for Windows, and one thing you probably wouldn't even think of, can you see the GP screen, everyone? Can someone send me a chat to let me know? There we go. I'm not sure what's happening with GoToMeeting. It's acting a little bit strange. Can you see the, for some reason, GoToMeeting isn't liking going back and forth between my screens. It's continuing to pause. Bear with me, please. Let me try something else. This has not happened to me before. Each time I try to show you my dev machine, it is minimizing. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Okay, so now can you see the GP screen? Thank you, HP Fairfield. Okay, so I think I'm just going to have to manipulate GoToMeeting a little bit further today. Thank you for bearing with me. So in the security task, we have Technical Service Tools as the product. The type is going to be Windows, and the series is Project. It's kind of a peculiar option, but that's where you're going to see where you can grant access within the task. So once you have that task set up, you can assign that task to a role. Okay, so let's go back to our slides here. We'll go to the next. So once you have access to the Professional Services Tools Library, this is what you're going to see when you access that in GP. It's a list of all of the tools available to you. And as I mentioned, we're going to cover as many as we can today. Obviously, we can't cover all of these in an hour, but I wanted to touch on a majority of them that I feel could be helpful to many of you customers. And so this is the window that you'll see. And if we look in GP, the way that you access that is by going down here into your navigation pane, and you'll see that Professional Services Tool Library is an option for me. If you don't see this in your window, what you'll do is you'll come down to these little arrows to the Configure buttons and click on that. And then we're going to go into the navigation pane options. And you'll see PSTL as an option if you have access to Professional Services Tools Library. By simply checking this checkbox, it will make it available to you in your navigation pane. So I'm just going to go to that page. Very plain page. Has one little link to get into that window. Okay? So that's how we get to the window in GP. The first set of tools we're going to look at are the system tools. And these are probably something that the IT department is going to use, or you may have people in your finance department that are power users that manage your GP application. The first one is the database disabler. It will prevent users from logging into a company. So perhaps you're running a process or running maintenance and you don't want anyone to log in. And how many times do you tell someone and they forget and they log in while you're trying to do something? This will give them a message when they try to log in that they're not allowed to log into that company at that time. The other tool is the shortcuts copy. In previous lives of GP, the shortcuts were how people got to windows or areas very quickly. Now you have the quick links and the toolbar and everything like that, but you still have the shortcuts available from your home page. And so I'll show you how to use that. And the last system tool that I'm going to talk about today is the Update User Date utility. We typically recommend that if you're leaving for the day or you're leaving for a good amount of time that you log out of GP. But often I find that when I go into customers that users stay logged in for prolonged days, and what this tool will do is it will update their user date automatically. And so let's just pop over to GP and take a look at these tools. Okay, so the first tool is the database disabler. And so if you look up here, here are the system tools. And this is very easy to do. You simply mark the radio button, database disabler. And let me just back up a minute. The checkboxes mean that you own this, that it's available to you, the first checkbox. The second box activates. So some of them you have to activate and then you have to enable. So for database disabler, we're just going to enable it for now. The next step would be to click the next button, and then you mark which company you want to disable for users to log in. Very easy. The shortcuts copy, which is the next item down, if I mark that and click next, it will ask me copy whose shortcuts to what user. So we're copying from user ID, and let's just say lesson user 1 has a lot of shortcuts that lesson user 2 would like to have, and they just want to save time. You can copy from right within this system. In the past, you would have had to set them all up individually, manually. This allows you to copy. And the update user date, again, this one you have to activate and then enable. And that's all you have to do. There's no next. Once you've checked that, the system will automatically update a user date. After it passes that 24-hour period, it will go to the next system date. So I'm just going to come off of that one. Okay, so those are the system tools I wanted to share with you today. Let's go back to our slideshow and look at some of the financial tools. Now the financial tools I'm going to be showing you today are quite robust. One is the account modifier and combiner. That's your general ledger chart of accounts. If you want to change one, two, or multiple account numbers, you can use this tool. You can do it one by one as it's shown in the window here, and we'll take a look in GP. Or you can update by using an Excel spreadsheet that notes this is the existing account number, and this in this other column is what I want to change it to. The other tools we're going to take a look at are the checkbook modifier, where it can edit the checkbook ID, and it will update it for future records, and it will go back and update all of the history on that checkbook. We'll look at fiscal period modifier. Again, that's one that you want to test in the test company, because adjusting your fiscal periods can really wreak havoc on your data if you don't do it correctly. And the General Ledger Master Record triggers. What the General Ledger Master Record triggers does, it allows you to say, when I set up a GL account in Company A, I wanted to also set up that same account number in Company B. So it keeps a consistent chart of accounts across companies if you're using multiple GP databases. So let's just take a look at that. Okay, so if we look at the financial tools, We have 4 tools here we're going to take a look at. So just let's take a look at Account Modifier / Combiner. If I mark that button and click Next, you can see the screen that I had on the PowerPoint, where you can change account numbers one by one. So if I had an account number, let's say cash payroll, and I wanted to combine that with another account, I would just select the other account, and by clicking Convert, it would merge those 2 account numbers, and it would maintain 1120. So it's converting this account number. So this account number here, the 1110, will no longer exist. It will be combined into 1120. You can also use the modifier to change a range. So perhaps you have a division that's merged with another division, or perhaps you're thinking of renumbering how you have those set up. So it could be division, account, department. Everyone's chart of accounts is different, so you could use this however you'd like. So perhaps Department 100, you want it to now be 110. Oh, and of course I've selected a number that's not accurate. So there we go. So we're going to say it's 11. All I would have to do is click Convert. It would update the chart of accounts, and it would also update all of your historical transactions for that account number or for that segment. And if I select Import, it will allow me to pull from an Excel spreadsheet the changes that I want to make in GP. So if you would like help on that, just give us a call. I've just kind of given you an overview. This can be a very powerful tool for changing your chart of accounts. The checkbook modifier is very straightforward. You just come into the Tools library and select Checkbook Modifier, and it will allow you to select your existing checkbook ID and make a change. So if you've worked with me, you know that I would not recommend using a bank's name as the checkbook ID because bank names change constantly or they're getting bought out. So we could say Uptown Trust is now going to be operating. And it would change that checkbook ID to be, and it actually prompts you to make a backup. So if I click Continue, it will change that checkbook ID and all of the transactions associated with that. Fiscal period modifier. Let's take a look at that. So many times a business will go through a change or a merge and they need to change their fiscal year. And so if you wanted to set up the new fiscal period, you'd simply come in here. Whoops, there we go. So you would just say, okay, 2017 is now going to be June of 2016. I'm sorry, July of 2016 through June of 2017. And you'd click Calculate. Now I'm not going to change it in my dev machine, but once you click Calculate, it will show you those new periods. And there's also another process that you need to run when you're in that window, is that you have to run Reconcile so that your transactions that have already been posted will update the appropriate fiscal periods. They'd still have the same transaction date. It's just GP needs to resync what fiscal period that date falls within. Okay. GL master triggers. If you have multiple GP companies, all you have to do is come into this window, click Next, and mark that you want anything that was done in this database, which is my Fabricam or the old name, The World Online, and I can replicate it to any other company database that's in GP. So I can just mark Accounts and OK. And now when I create a GL account in my Fabricam company, it will copy it to my TSS company that you saw in that window. Pretty cool. All right, so let's move on to our PowerPoint and take a look at the sales and receivables tools. There's a few more sales and receivables tools, and when I say sales, I'm speaking to sales order processing, which not everyone uses, but there is some change to that. So the first tool is the Customer Combiner, and I've done a screenshot here of that right at the top upper right-hand corner. So you'd select your starting customer and combine into one other customer. I run into this quite often, whereas a duplicate customer gets created, and rather than making the other customer inactive and just using the second ID, this allows you to combine them so that you see all of the transaction history under one customer ID. And again, you can do that one by one, or you can update a spreadsheet. The customer modifier allows you to change the ID on a customer. So perhaps the name changed and you're using an alphanumeric combination for the IDs. This will allow you to update that ID for the current records and historical. Customer name modifier. You can change your customer name in the card, but that won't change anything going backwards. This would allow it to change backwards, or as I mentioned before, historical. There's a master record trigger for receivables. And then another nice tool is the Receivables Management Transaction Unapply. Now once you have applied a cash receipt and you've run the paid transaction removal, you know that you can no longer unapply that cash receipt or a credit memo that's been fully applied. This tool allows you to go in and unapply those records, and we'll take a look at that. And lastly, we're going to look at the salesperson modifier. So let's go over to GP. All right, so here are your sales tools in the center here. And the first item we're going to look at is the, oops, I just flipped my screen too quickly, is the Customer Combiner. And so if we click Next here, we could have a customer, let's say that Mid-City Hospital is merging with Downtown Hotel. Doesn't really make sense, but you get the idea from the example. What will happen is this customer number will not exist because all of the transactions will be combined into this customer number. So any addresses and things will be gone. It will only use this customer number's master record data. And you just click Convert, and that will combine them. The customer modifier, that allows you to change the customer ID. So if I look up a customer and I mistakenly made the ID wrong, or their name has changed so it's no longer going to be Astor Suites, maybe now it's Crown Suites, I could do that and it would change that customer number for me, and it would update all the historical records. Customer name modifier, again, if you select the customer, and maybe Advanced Paper Company is now just Advanced Paper Incorporated, you could run this change and that name would update all of the records, all of the transactions. So like I said, if you change the name on the customer card, it would only change it from that point forward, which is sometimes what you want to do, and that's fine. This allows you to change historical records. Receivables Management Master Triggers. Now when we open this window, you'll notice it's the same window that we looked at for the GL. It's also available for vendors. You just check the box off, and when you create a customer in the Fabricam company, it will then create that same customer record in any other companies you select in this window. And this is one of my favorites, the RM Unapply. It opens up a window for you to select the customer, And you can see here there's a column available. And so if I go down and find a payment, I'm just going to uncheck these and redisplay. Go down and find a payment. I can unapply these payments so that that document is then available to apply somewhere else. And it then gives you a report if you want to see that. So this one has been one of my favorites, and it's been used quite a bit by customers. So you don't have to wait to run paid transaction removal anymore in the case that you may want to unapply something. And the last item I'm going to show you in this window is the salesperson modifier. Again, it's just like the customer ID. You can change the salesperson's name. So let's say that Nancy Buchanan got married and now she's Nancy C. I can go ahead and just click convert, and it's going to change all of the records for Nancy. And it's pretty quick. Okay, so those are the receivables type changes that you'll see. In sales order processing, there's some additional tools, and boy, I made this slide a little bit busy, didn't I? So one of the items that's available is the customer item lookup. And we'll take a look at that, and it will show you the history of what that customer has ordered. So if they're not quite sure, you have them on the phone and they want to know what they ordered last, in the sales order transaction window, you can click on additional and it will show you what they've ordered last. We can also modify territories, and we can combine territories if you're using those. I don't have too many people that have been using those much, but we'll take a quick peek at that. Sales order processing PO number check. So what that would require is that over here in your PO number, it would require you to enter a purchase order. And then as you see down here in my screenshot, the PO number already exists. So if you enter a duplicate PO, that may be okay, but it may not be, because maybe you're entering this order a second time, which I know that can happen if you have multiple people processing orders, and maybe it came in through an email and a fax, and 2 different people entered it, and then you have 2 orders in there for the same order, same purchase order. So this will prompt you to say, this already exists. Do you want to save or not? So we'll just go right back into GP and take a look at these different tools. Okay, so let's look at the customer item lookup. So I've activated it, and now I'm going to actually turn it on. And so we're okay here. And so I'm going to come out of the window, and I'm going to go into the sales transaction entry window. And here you can see I'm in this customer's window. If I want to see historical transactions, I can come under Additional and select Historical Lookup, and it will show me items that that customer has purchased in the past. So that way you're eliminating scrambling, going through Smart List or Inquiry, trying to find what the last time that person, what they ordered the last time, because they can't quite remember what the item is. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other is that purchase order number check. You can see that the PO number is bold now, so it's showing me that it's a required field. So if I try to save this, it's going to tell me, oh, ignore the analytical accounting, that not all required fields have been entered. So I have to put in a purchase order for this customer. Now, if that was a duplicate purchase order, it would give me that error. So if I pull up, let's see if I can pull up my invoice that I had here. And if I put in the PO number that I had on another document, it's going to tell me that PO number already exists. So then I can stop and confirm that, yes, it really is an additional item from the purchase order, or maybe I'm processing a duplicate order. So I can say, no, I don't want that, and it was really this purchase order. So it will allow you to save it with a duplicate number, but it prompts you to let you know that that purchase order has already been used in sales order processing. Okay, let's go back to our professional services tools setup. So we looked at the customer item lookup. Let's look at and we looked at the PO number check. Let's look at the territory modifier. So if we have a territory in here and we're changing it up, we could select a territory and give it a different name. So maybe it's territory 11. Maybe we're changing our numbering scheme. It would go and change that on all of the customer records, all of the transactions, and that way you've updated your system with just the click of this convert button. And the last item for sales order processing is this territory combiner. Similar to the customer combiner, you just select your territory, and so maybe you're limiting the number of territories. You're having your salespeople cover more area. You can say, okay, territory 1 and 2 are now just territory 2. And it's just as simple as selecting them and clicking the convert button. Okay. So we'll go back to our PowerPoint here and take a look at the inventory tools. There's a handful of these tools available to you. And so we have the inventory site combiner. That's pretty self-explanatory. The modifier, the item description modifier, item number combiner, item number modifier, and item reconciler. So let's just take a look at some of those tools. Okay, so for inventory, you can see there in the upper right-hand corner here, we have the inventory site combiner. So if we click on that, again, it's just that combiner type window. This is the site I want to combine it into, and you click convert. The inventory site modifier, again, if you start using these tools, you'll notice that there's consistency on how the tools work across the modules. The starting site and the ending site ID is going to be what? Instead of 01N, maybe it's going to be 01 North, so that it's a little more explanatory. And you simply click that convert button, and it will change all those site IDs. Item description modifier. You select an item, and so maybe multi-core processor is really not the appropriate name anymore. We want to have a different description, so maybe we just want to say multi-core processor, and we can click convert, and that will change the master record for that item, and it will change all of the historical transactions. It will change it everywhere in GP. Item number combiner, it's just that. If you have perhaps 2 different people set up items for the same product, you can come in here and select those 2 items, and it would convert into the second item that you select. So if these 2 are actually the same item, you could come in and select and say this item needs to be combined with this item, and then that first item number will not exist anymore. Nice clean change. Item number modifier. Perhaps you want to change your item number. Just come in here and then type in what you want the new item number to be. And once you hit convert, it updates all of your records. Okay, so the item reconciler, this is actually a nice tool that I kind of forgot about until I was reviewing for our webinar today. Reconcile for inventory can take quite a long time. What this tool allows you to do is it allows you to run reconcile, but it will only reconcile those items that it believes needs to be reconciled. So it's not going to go through your 6,000 items if they don't need to be reconciled. Perhaps maybe only 100 need to be reconciled. So it's going to be much better in performance for you. So running this here versus in the reconcile area will be much more efficient. So those of you running reconcile and inventory will probably like that one. Okay, purchasing tools. There's a couple of cool purchasing tools here. So this is payables and purchase order processing. The first few are, around payables. One is the 1099 modifier, payables management master record triggers, and we kind of had a glimpse of that already. Payables management minimum check, where you can say don't print a check in the check batching process for anything less than this dollar amount. Select checks combiner. So if you have multiple people creating check batches, you could combine a check batch. You have vendor combiner, vendor modifier, and vendor name modifier, and those should sound familiar by now since we've gone through customer and item. And then we have the purchase order processing cost defaulter, where you can designate current or standard cost versus the last invoice cost to update your item for purchasing. So let's just pop over to GP and take a look at a few of these tools. Okay, and so your purchasing tools are down here and then they finish up in the center of the window here. But let's look at the 1099 modifier. So in here we can say for 1099, well, I guess I don't have a calendar year here for 1099s. I can just click the process, and what this will do is it will modify any of those vendors that perhaps weren't set up appropriately until middle of the year, and you want to update all of those periods with the 1099 amounts. In the past, you would go to the 1099 details and manually key in the total for that year. So perhaps they either were not set up as a 1099 vendor till too late, or they were set up as a 1099 vendor and shouldn't be. This will go out and correct all of those vendor 1099 balances for you to be able to print your 1099s. Very much a time saver. Payables management master triggers. Again, you can just say that when I create a vendor in company Fabricam, I want it to also create a vendor in my TSS01 company. So we can say OK here, and it will just automatically do that each time you set up a vendor. PM minimum check, you have to activate and then enable. So if we go there, it will require you to set up in payable setup what that minimum check will be. And so you can set any dollar amount there. Select checks combiner. Again, that's another one where you can enable and activate. And I'm just going to uncheck these. The select checks, so if you have multiple batches, you'll have the option to combine those batches. Vendor combiner. This window is going to look very similar. You select the starting vendor ID, and you select the vendor that you're going to be merging with. And from there, you just click Convert, and those two will be combined, and they'll just be Burnett Travel versus Beaumont and Burnett. Vendor modifier. Perhaps the vendor name has changed and you're using an alphanumeric, or it's set up wrong, like this Australia, and maybe you want it to be Australia 001. You just click Convert, and it changes that vendor, and so it will always just be Australia 001 now, and it updates all of the records. And it will give you a report. Another item is the vendor name modifier. Again, similar to the customer name modifier and the item name modifier. You just simply select your vendor ID. And if you notice in that lookup, it's no longer just Australia, it's Australia 001, the one we just changed. And we could enter a different vendor name here. And it will update all of the records. Okay, so the purchase order cost defaulter, this will allow you to designate a current or standard cost on the item, and it will look at that versus the last invoice cost. Naturally, out of GP, it takes the last invoice cost when you create a purchase order for that same item. So if you look at an inventory item, and let's just take a look at one, you'll see here that you have a standard or current cost, but so you can update here what you want to go on the purchase order versus what you paid last time. And the system will automatically track what you paid last time. Okay, that was pretty quick on the purchasing tools. I'm just trying to fit it all in here. We have a few payroll tools. So in payroll, employee modifier, this has been one that if you're not using a fully numeric, then you're going to have people who have name changes. You know, either getting married or whatnot, whatever scenario it may be, names change. So there's the employee modifier that allows you to do that. There's also a certified payroll report, and in the past you weren't able to do this unless you had a third-party product like Job Cost from Wensoft or anything else. So now you are able to track job information on payroll transactions and create a report if you're required to. So we'll take a look at both of those items. Okay, so the payroll tools, let's look at employee modifier first. You have your employee IDs. And so let's say Brenda Diaz is now Brenda Brown. And if I click convert, it's going to convert her name from Diaz to Brown. So if I look at this lookup now, Diaz is no longer available in the list. Although I'm not seeing Brown either. Oh, I didn't change her name. I'm looking at names. There's Brown right there. So I would need to go in and change her name on that employee record. Now I have activated the certified payroll report. And so if I go in and I create a transaction, a payroll transaction for an employee, and I did this already, but let me just show you where you would put that in. So if I were to add an item to this payroll transaction entry window, you can see I now have job number available where I can enter in a job number, and this pay would be associated with this job number. And then I can run the report and it will show me, and let me just pop over there to show you the report. So I added it as a shortcut, and I'm going to run it through 040717 for my state job is what I put in. Actually, it might have been 47-2018. No, here it is. So here's Adam Barr, and it's telling us what his wages were and totals. So you have a report to submit. Okay, those are the payroll tools. So the miscellaneous tools that we have are the fixed asset modifier, a minimum PO receipt number, default add item, document date verify, decimal places, and company copy. And so we're not going to look at all of those today, but let's pop over to GP and take a look at a few of those. And I'm going to go back to my Professional Services Tools library and open that back up. So let's look at the fixed asset modifier. I can change an existing asset's ID. Well, that one looks like damaged data in my sample company here. I can change that ID. So I can say this is actually supposed to be 0002 rather than 0002. And I can click change, and that will change all of the records, including that asset master record. The document date verify, this is a good one to use because what that does is it enables you to have a check on your date when you're entering transactions. I've run into this several times where customers will ask me, well, why did GP allow that date to be entered since it's not even a fiscal year set up? This will enable you to verify the date on a transaction, and it won't allow anyone to enter something if the date does not fall within a valid fiscal period. It will pop a message. Or if the document date falls within a period that's closed, the message will be displayed, which you generally see that anyway in GP, but sometimes GP allows you to enter it, and then when you go to post, it will give you the error. So it will prompt you at the time you're entering that date that it's not a valid date. Okay. And the company copy, this is nice because many times when you're creating a test company, you want to just copy over. So you can use this company copy. I'm sorry, that's not what it is. Company copy, I'm thinking of something else. Company copy allows you to copy the setups from one company to another. So if you're setting up a new company database in GP, what you can do is come in here to company copy and say, okay, from this company, Fabricam, I want to copy all of my setups to my new company, Tidestone Fabricam. And I'm going to select everything that I want to come over in that copy. So it's a nice, clean database that you set up, then you copy in the master record setup and things like that. You can actually copy over report options as well. So it's a nice, clean copy from one company to another of those setups. Okay. The decimal place tool, you need to activate and enable. And when this is activated, both the payables checks and payroll checks will have a check amount in words truncated to 2 decimals. So this can help you to change the decimal places and the check amount in words, in the words portion of the check. Okay. So you just mark both of those. So we're actually running out of time, so I do want to open us up for questions before we end the webinar. So I'm going to unmute. I would ask that if you're typing or whatnot that you would mute yourselves, and if you have questions, I'm opening it up now. So I have unmuted, and so if you have questions, feel free to ask those now. I know we covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. Hopefully you were able to get some good information in our time together. Well, I'm guessing that there are no questions, so let me just pop back to my PowerPoint and let you know that we do have some things coming up. The Convergence Conference in Atlanta next week is the Microsoft Customer Conference. If you're not attending this year, I would highly recommend you attend this and put it into your budget for next year. It's a conference that I personally love to go to. I gain a lot of insight as to where GP is going, and I learn a lot about the product. I have access to ISVs. I have access to the Microsoft Tech Support team. So if you don't have that in your budget for next year, maybe you can work on that. We'll have another webinar at the end of March after Convergence, and hopefully I'll have some GP 2015 information to share with you. I put this in as tentative because I'm not sure how much I will get from Convergence about 2015, but that's my goal, is to have a webinar to kind of introduce GP 2015 to you. And then we have our GP user group meeting in April on the 29th, and it's being hosted at Nappy Distributors, where it's a group of GP users, and they meet to discuss ideas, and there's always a presentation where you can learn more about GP or add-ons or reporting, and it's a nice way to interact with other businesses who are using GP to share ideas and just to have a contact to say, well, how do you approach this, and maybe get some good ideas out of each other. So that's it for today. Thanks for attending the webinar. If you have any questions, you can contact us directly or email us. You can see our website is here on the slide, and you can view this webinar later. If you have any questions and you want to see something again, you can just go to our website and go to the events page, and you will see the webinars under blogs. So thanks again for your time today, and I look forward to speaking with you.